Welcome in, I'm Kimberly. This is Pretty Over 50, where we talk everything makeup, skincare, and lifestyle for the over 50 woman. Oh my gosh, today I am so excited to share this video with you. It's a little bit different than what I usually do, but it's featuring someone that I truly love, and you guys do too. It's Cindy from the Seraphic group. She is my very, very smart friend, and I invited her on today to talk with us about something that's really been kind of eating at me lately. As you know, as we all know, there have been so many sunscreens pulled off the market for cancer-causing ingredients. And you know what? This really bothers me. It bothers me because we rely on these agencies like the FDA to really monitor what's going in the products that we're not only ingesting, but putting on our bodies. It really bugs me that something can get out in the market that is truly cancer causing. We may have been using it for years or even decades, and what, they just now decide that it's not healthful? It really made me start thinking about the whole sunscreen issue. It is curious to me that in my lifetime, the sun has gone from something that is healthful and part of a regular routine to being totally villainized and talked about as though it's going to kill us. That bothers me, and I really wonder how valid that is. I contacted my friend Cindy, who's super smart. She's a PhD, she's a scientist. She really is brilliant. Where I cannot research like she does, she researches just brilliantly and is able to take that research and come to conclusions. I invited Cindy on to talk with me about the whole sunscreen issue. Is sunscreen really good for us? Is sunscreen bad for us? Is the sun good for us? Is the sun bad for us? What's the real story? I know that we have been told repeatedly over the years and now decades to stay out of the sun, to not get sun. The sun is bad for us. The sun's going to age us. The sun's going to cause cancer. On and on and on. And you know what? I'm starting to wonder if that's even true. And if the sunscreens we've been slathering on our bodies are filled with harmful chemicals, are we really improving the situation? And we're all slathering ourselves with sunscreen now, and yet the skin cancer rates are not diminishing. As a matter of fact, they continue to go up year after year. So all these questions really started eating at me. I decided I want to get down to the very bottom of, is the sun evil? Is sunscreen evil? And what the truth is. So I invited my dear friend Cindy on to talk with us about it. She's going to bring us some great information, and hopefully we can all walk away with some new good information that we can then use to make our own decision about what is best for us. So let's welcome in Cindy. I can't wait to talk with her.
Hi, Kimberly.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Well, welcome in, Cindy. I'm so happy to have you here. As I just told you, I love spending time with you. You are my smart friend. And you're the one that I go to when I have questions about health. Today, we're going to be talking about my concerns about sunscreen, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that has concerns because there's been so many recalls out in the marketplace. It's troubling to me that we have products on the shelves that they say, 10 years later, oh, it causes cancer. That's a problem for me. So I talked with Cindy. We decided we'd hop on and just kind of do a deep dive into sunscreen, what it's all about. Is the sun really our villain? That sort of thing. But first, Cindy, can you tell us just a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you are now? Cindy is with the group Seraphic, and Seraphic is the company that makes the Ion line of products. You guys know I love the line. I use both the Ion gut support daily, and I use the skin support. So Cindy, take it away. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, thank you, Kimberly, for having me. Couldn't be more delighted than to have some time with you. Right after graduate school, I started with a large chemical company. I'm an organic chemist. And shortly after my first few years with the company, I developed a really severe case of fibromyalgia at the age of 29. And they had me on all sorts of drugs. But through kind of extreme exercise, I was able to manage quite well for about 20 years. I got off all the medications, was living relatively pain-free as long as I ran every day and lifted. But when I hit 50, I had this major relapse. And I was on so many prescriptions to help manage pain, sleep. I developed hypothyroidism, eczema, allergies to dust mites. I had bags of pharmaceuticals. And I think, one day we all reach our breaking point, and I just had enough. I think I had stopped, I finally stopped viewing myself as someone who has all of these diseases and started viewing myself as someone who just has a lack of health. And I learned all about the gut microbiome. I decided I'm going to try some supplements. The first one I started was Ion Gut Support. And I shifted to organic, non-GMO, stopped with poisons in my body. And literally within days, my body was beginning to heal. I'm off all pharmaceuticals at this point, no hypothyroidism, no fibromyalgia, no eczema, no dust mite allergies. When I dug into it further, Ion was formulated to combat glyphosate, which is the most widely used pesticide. It's in over 80% of all of our urine. A lot of your non-GMO plants are sprayed with glyphosate. And while I was thrilled I got off the drugs, I had this kind of soul-crushing realization, was that I had worked for 27 years with a company that was one of the largest manufacturers and suppliers of glyphosate. So this chemical that my company was selling that was, affording my paycheck was literally poisoning me, and I am ashamed to say millions of other people. So that was a moment for me where I just switched gears. I'm now working for Seraphic. I'm all in, and I'm all about educating. My life's mission now has become educating people about these toxins and trying to reconnect people with really the importance of the clean soil. And we have to stop doing this to our soil and to our bodies. So anyway, that's the short version.
Thank you for sharing. And I'll tell you, your mission right now couldn't be closer to my heart. I just so agree with all of that. And the journey of pharmaceuticals to really recognizing you had a lack of health, and then being willing to look in other directions. I have such admiration for you, because it must have been tough. When you don't feel good, you don't think well. And for you to really, work your way through it is just so impressive.
Oh, thank you. I actually think I'm one of the lucky ones, because I think sometimes we have to get to our lowest point to be able to then ascend. And so I think I'm actually one of those people that was really lucky to reach bottom, because now I'm feeling just so good and so grateful to be part of this company and this mission. So,
yeah. And you look fabulous. So
thank you.
Let's jump right in and rip the Band-Aid off right away. During my lifetime, I have seen the sun go from being an integral part of good health, go out, get some sun, go for a walk, to now being completely villainized. Can you talk to me a little bit about the benefits and the risks of the sun?
Yeah. I think sunscreen is a great topic, because it helps to highlight how, when there's money to be made, the truth is clouded by the interests of the industry, and the best interest of the consumer is compromised. So just a little bit of history. The first synthetic sunscreens came about starting, I think, in the 1940s, or about 1940. And there was this push at wartime to protect soldiers. And it was called Red Vet Veterinary Petroleum. And it was scooped up by Coppertone, which modified it slightly because it was the Scoopy red stuff, and took it to the masses in the 1950s. And I find that origin story of modern day sunscreens fascinating, and kind of wonder if its use in the war set the tone in terms of sunscreen and how we view the sun. Like, all of a sudden we were at war with the sun, and we've forgotten all these amazing health benefits. And that's kind of how it started to be positioned. So I think the benefits are a really good place to start. So first of all, UVC, really high energy, don't make it into the atmosphere. UVB, make it through the rays, make it through the atmosphere. They're blocked by glass. They don't penetrate the skin very deeply at all. And they support the formation of vitamin D. Vitamin D is so critical to our health, right? It helps absorb calcium and phosphorus to make bones. It reduces cancer cell growth. It's integral to your immune system, controlling infections, reducing inflammation. So vitamin D is critical. The one damaging part of UVB, and you can remember this, is B is burn. UVB causes sunburn if you have too much of it. UVA rays are a little bit longer frequency. They actually do go through glass. They penetrate the layers of the skin more deeply. But the beauty of that is they encourage formation of nitric oxide, which is a really potent vasodilator. All that means it opens the little blood vessels wider, encouraging nutrient and oxygen delivery in our blood. And nitric oxide is one of the most important molecules produced by the human body. It controls cellular function, and as we age, loss of nitric oxide is the earliest onset of chronic disease. It's super important. And nobody ever talks about UVA and how important it is to making nitric oxide. So of course, the flip side is if you get too much of it, it can cause aging, the effects of aging, wrinkles, or skin cancer. So two very different things, UVB and UVA. The other things that the sun does, and the list is long, right? It improves sleep. If you get sun in the morning, you actually produce more melatonin at night. So that's very important to your sleep. Reduces stress, probably because of the increased melatonin. They've shown that it maintains strong bones, probably because of vitamin D. It helps keep weight off. So more time in the sun actually is correlated with keeping weight off.
That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And they've taken out well, maybe that means you're talking to people who are exercising more. They've taken out all of those factors. Simply being in the sun is correlated with keeping weight off. It strengthens your immune system. It fights off depression. This is a really interesting one to me because it actually increases the amount of serotonin in your body, and that's a neurotransmitter. It's you're happy, makes you feel good. So sunlight increases serotonin. It extends lifespan by anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, they found. And this is the last one. There's just so many, but the last one I think is really fascinating. Have you ever heard of hormesis?
No.
So hormesis is the benefits of mild stress. So when you go running or do any kind of weight-bearing exercise, you actually get little microfractures in your bones. That's a good thing. And then you heal and you're stronger as a result. So that's what hormesis is. Yeah. Mild stress makes you stronger. Well, what we found and what they're finding is that UV actually stimulates collagen production, kind of this hormetic effect. So it's actually helpful. Like you hear all this aging, but it's actually a little bit of sunlight or UV is actually helpful to collagen formation. I don't know. I guess the way I look at it is if someone could make money off of it, the sun would be bottled up and sold for profit.
They'll figure out a way to do it. They will. They will. So this is what I find interesting, Cindy, about what you just outlined of the benefits of the sun. It seems that all those benefits are what have become chronic issues in the US. Depression, trouble sleeping, being healthy, just being healthy. And I'll tell you an experience that I had when I was in my early 50s, longer ago than I'd like to think. I went to a doctor who was kind of, not your standard Western medical doctor, a little bit more open. And he said to me, I want you to start taking 5,000 to 10,000 IUs of vitamin D daily. And he started listing all the benefits. I hadn't heard this. This was new to me. And he said, vitamin D is so good, they're going to find a way to make it illegal. And that always stuck with me. And it's very interesting that what you're talking about, the benefits of the sun, it seems to me that the benefits far outweigh the risks.
Yeah. It's interesting. whether you're very spiritual or very scientific, or you're one of those like me that kind of combines the two.
Yeah, me too.
We were not designed to have to get supplements. We did not evolve to have to get supplements. And vitamin D is a very clear example of that. There are very few foods that you can get vitamin D from. Very fatty fish, which not everybody has access to. Oranges, kind of random, but not everybody has access to. And egg yolks, right? So that's it. The rest is from fortified this, fortified that, like we had to put it in.
Mm-hmm.
So this deficiency in vitamin D is not from a lack of supplements, right? It's from the only way that we get it. We were designed and we evolved to get it from the sun, to make it. So to me, like if anybody says, are sunscreens to blame? Well, I think sunscreens, and we are just not spending as much time outside.
Yeah, because we've been told not to.
It's been vilified.
Yeah. And okay, so let's hop into the whole issue of sunscreen now, but I want to make a disclaimer to everyone. I no longer use sunscreen, and I know that's blasphemous in the beauty community. I do not. Simply because my concerns now outweigh what I see as any benefits at all. What I use on my skin is the Ion Skin Support. You guys know that. I've been talking about it for a while. I use it on my face and on my neck, front and back. I don't use sunscreen anymore because I feel like what has happened to us in this country with the vilification of the sun and the promotion of toxic sunscreens, in my opinion, is not for our benefit. So I have a bias, and I'm letting you guys know that right now. Cindy does not have my biases. She's much smarter and she's much more scientific. So let's hop into the question, are sunscreens safe?
I should explain there's two categories of sunscreens to start with. There's mineral and organic. And the term organic is really misleading. There's nothing to do with the absence of toxic pesticides. These organic sunscreens are just synthetic. The term organic simply means they contain carbon. So don't be misled that an organic sunscreen is somehow beneficial. Those are chemical, they're synthetic. The mineral sunscreens refer to the actives, which are titanium dioxide or zinc oxide, which don't contain any carbon. So they're the mineral or the chemical. And I'll say, right off the bat, there's really no data that I've come across that has any safety concern at all with the mineral-based sunscreens. They don't show up in your bloodstream, so they don't get into your body. They're effective against both UVA and UVB. They can give a white cast, but a lot of companies have done this really great job of putting I think it's iron oxides or various minerals to kind of give them a tan look, so they're better. So if you want to protect yourself from the sun without poisoning yourself, they work very well. So I have most issue with the chemical sunscreens. These chemicals do get in your bloodstream, they accumulate and they persist. And the mind-blowing thing to me is that no one disputes that 96% of the US population has oxybenzone, for example, in our bodies, 96%, which is a testament to just how much of these sunscreens we've been putting on our bodies, and it's absorbing. The difference is, I guess the best way to put it is the interpretation. Those promoting the chemical sunscreen say, we need more data to show that the chemical sunscreens are unsafe before you take them off the market. The other side is we need more data to show that the chemical sunscreens are safe before we put them on our bodies. So it's the same data, totally different interpretations of what action should be taken. So there are 14 organic actives that can be used according to the FDA sunscreen monograph. So anybody can launch a sunscreen, they just have to follow a recipe. There's 14 organic chemical actives you can use. Of the 14, 2 have been categorically deemed unsafe. They will be removed on the next revision. That's PABA and trolamine salicylate. The remaining 12 is shocking to me. They're in this strange kind of state of limbo. The FDA has said, well, they set a boundary condition that said, if anything shows up in your blood greater than 0.5 nanograms per milliliter, it requires more toxicological tests. These 12 organic chemical actives have long been known to be absorbed into our blood much higher than that level and persist for days after you stop using them. It's now 20 years later, and the FDA is asking for more testing. It's taken away the GRAS, the generally recognized as safe label status for the 12. So it's saying, no, they're not. They're not safe. They're not generally recognized as safe, but they're not taking them off the market. They're saying, we need you to go get more testing. So in the meantime, people are slathering these on their bodies and they're known endocrine disruptors and on their children's skin, thinking that it's saving them from the ravages of the sun, when in fact, it's like this double whammy, right? We're not getting the health benefits from the sun and they're poisoning themselves with endocrine disruptors.
Okay, let's stop right here.
Mhm.
Talk to us like we're 5 and tell us what an endocrine disruptor is and the effects that it has on our bodies.
Endocrine disruptors are really underrated in terms of their damage. So everybody tends to say, if it causes cancer, you've got my attention, right? But endocrine disruption is like, not a big deal. All parties agree that these cause endocrine disruption. They're seeing these effects in monkeys, zebrafish, all sorts of animals. Before I talk about endocrine disruption, just so you know, what the argument is, not that they're not endocrine disruptors, but we're not monkeys, we're not zebrafish. So somehow humans are more resilient than these animals, but these animal models have been really well borne out. Like they actually do show what happens in humans. So everybody agrees they're endocrine disruptors. What endocrine disruptors do, there's like 2 systems in your body. There's the nervous system. They send signals really fast, right? Really acute, quick. The endocrine system is all the slow moving stuff. We have endocrine glands all through our body: the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the thyroid, the parathyroid, the adrenal, the pancreas, the gonads, which are the reproductive. And they emit all these hormones, about 50 different little chemicals in our blood. They move through the blood and they have lingering effects, and they regulate our metabolism, our reproduction, our growth, our development, our electrolyte balance, our sleep, our temperature. So as an example, I know I'm not doing a good job of being simplifying, so I'm going to give you a really simple example. You get off the bus and you forgot your jacket. You get chilly. It's your endocrine system, which goes, the temperature's changed. I need to release some glucose into my blood. I need to start burning glucose in order to warm my body back up. It takes care of everything. Atrazine is an endocrine disruptor that's in tap water. It's a widely used pesticide, and it's been found to, in levels that are in tap water, actually chemically castrate frogs and turn them into females. So it literally changes the sex of these frogs at a level that some people are actually drinking. So endocrine disruption is, it has a profound effect on our health, leading to, when I had hypothyroidism, I lost my eyebrows, you gain weight, you have no temperature control, depression. So really profound kind of effects that can ultimately lead to death and cancer. But the journey there is pretty unpleasant as well. So I really think the world we could stand to educate people more on the endocrine disruptors and just how profoundly they impact our health.
Yeah.
Does that help at all?
Yeah, that really helped. You know, I have been struggling with the issue, and this is just to sort of round out this concept of what are we doing to ourselves. As we grow older, it is quite common as we age to get issues. Oh, I can't eat that now. I can't eat that now. I don't feel good. My energy is low, this and that. And I started thinking, it's like, I wonder if it's not so much that we're aging, it's that the buildup in toxins in our bodies over the years is just getting too much for us to handle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we start looking at things like just putting sunscreen on, what that one thing is doing, has a profound effect.
Yeah. I think we are just profoundly affecting our resilience at a very basic level. We're getting less and less and less resilient because we have such a toxic load on our bodies. And the body is an amazing machine that, has these kidneys, which will detox, but you can only insult so much, and everything that we're putting on our bodies and ingesting, we're carrying toxins with that. So I don't think the regulatory bodies do us any favors with their regulatory oversight, because they try to put things into boxes and make sense of things. And they want to protect industry, right? They want to protect jobs, and they don't give people credit. They don't give people credit for being intelligent people to be able to tell them the full truth. When I look at regulatory oversight of sunscreens, the FDA created this concept of SPF back in the 70s as an indicator of protection against UVB, which causes sunburn. So B, burn. I tend to help me keep them straight. They had little awareness of UVA at that time and the damage it could impart. The term broad spectrum, which covers both, wasn't introduced until I think 2011, which indicates protection against UVA and UVB. So we saw SPF, I think you mentioned this at the beginning, increase from SPF 2 in the 60s when I was growing up to SPF 15 in 1986 to SPF 30 in the early 90s. All of those just pertain to UVB. They didn't have anything to do with UVA rays. The chemical sunscreens introduced did not protect against UVA. So this created this false sense of protection that slathering these chemical sunscreens on with this high SPF was actually going to protect us. And so we're like slathering it, baking in the sun, exposing ourselves to UVA rays. And once they found out, instead of someone stepping up and saying, oops, mea culpa, we didn't know about those UVA rays, it's been swept under the rug. And they started working on ways to make chemical sunscreens address UVA as well. And here's another blunder. Avobenzone, which was introduced in 1988 as the only chemical sunscreen with a UVA filter, it was found shortly thereafter to decompose on the skin within an hour of putting it on your skin to a toxic byproduct. So, now they put a stabilizer in there, again, a mistake, octocrylene, which is endocrine disrupting, and they found it as damaging to the coral reefs. So it's just this ridiculous mindset, and nobody came clean. Nobody came clean. It was like we had perfectly good protection with mineral sunscreens that protected against UVA and UVB. They just don't make anybody any money. They're not the patented chemical sunscreen. It's just kind of regulatory oversight did not do us any favors. In fact, it gave us a false sense of protection.
That is an issue for me. I know that in my younger years, would look to the FDA and these other organizations that were claiming to have our best interest at heart. And what I'm realizing now is there are a lot of things that come before the interest of the consumer.
Yeah.
Industry profits, jobs, covering your past mistakes.
Yeah.
Putting another Band-Aid on top of the 5 Band-Aids that are already there. I certainly put more faith in those organizations than I would today.
Yeah. It's that's kind of been the journey that I've been on. When I was at this previous company for the 27 years, I had all of the regulatory people report to me. So I had the technical and the regulatory in the clean and disinfect area. So we got really good at killing things. And that's all highly regulated, but it was not uncommon to stop experiments before you got a negative result, right? You knew the parameters under which you had to pass a certain test to show efficacy and to avoid showing toxicity. It was just a game, right? It was the way that you played it. Yet all these people that worked for these agencies, they don't go to work for the EPA because they're wanting to manipulate. They're going there because they want to do good. Like they're getting hired there for all the right reasons. They want to help. They want to protect the environment. They want to protect people. But the system makes it really hard.
It's just, I really feel like, particularly in this country, and we can just talk about the US, that profits before everything. I mean, that seems like profits before people, profits before health, profits before integrity, profits before everything. And this might be an arena where that is true as well.
I agree. I think it protects the status quo. It protects jobs. It protects industry, but it does not protect the consumer. I think that really has fallen on us.
So we're slathering ourselves with sunscreen. We're not getting that good 20 minutes of sunlight over 80% of our body every day.
Right.
Are skin cancer rates going down?
No, no. It's really interesting, right? I should say regular use of broad spectrum, meaning UVA and UVB, so your mineral sunscreens, reduce risk of skin cancers by 40 to 50%. That's been well established. Those studies have given this umbrella to all chemical sunscreens, right? And the media is telling us people are still getting skin cancer because they're not applying enough. They're not applying correctly. We need to sell more. You need to put more on. It's the consumer's fault. They're just, they need help. How much do they, how thick should it be? And there's countless videos out there now, right?
I know. Slather on more.
More, like that's the answer. The truth, I think, I've heard a lot, I've read a lot. I think there's lots of contributing factors. I've heard the hole in the ozone argument. I'm not sure that that's it. Tanning beds introduced in 1978. I think these are minor additions. I do think as we allowed people to fry, thinking that they were protecting themselves against UVA and they weren't, and that was over, a 20, 30-year stretch, right? So I do think that contributed. We had this false sense of protection and we got out there and fried, I also believe, and this I think is a little more controversial, that our true resilience to the sun is our baseline health. And it's impacted, we know that it's impacted by the foods that we eat. There are very well-controlled studies that show you can have a 30 to 40% lower risk of skin cancer with a diet that's rich in fruits and vegetables, that's plant-based, very rich in fruits and vegetables with lots of, those antioxidant rich foods. 30 to 40% lower risk with your diet. Recall earlier I said you can have a 40 to 50% reduction with sunscreen. I mean, they're not that far off. So you can actually eat and create a more resilient you. Yeah. And then I wouldn't suggest going, frying yourself and laying on a beach with no protection. I don't know that that's smart. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I think, yes, skin cancer rates have gone up. I think we are slathering so much sunscreen on that I think we have to start looking at inherently our own health.
Right.
And increase there's some studies that actually show you can increase your SPF to like an SPF 2. So you can double the amount of time you can be in the sun with less impact on the skin. So I think we have a lot of power within us.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to eating fruits and vegetables. I eat a ton of fruits and vegetables. I'm sure a lot of you do. I mean, I love fruits and vegetables. Why does that have such a big impact on skin cancer? What is it? What's the mechanism that helps us avoid skin cancer with a diet rich in fruits and vegetables?
These fruits and vegetables have chemicals in there. Actually, this is really interesting. It's similar to our ion skin spray. They have these chemicals structures in there, quinone-like structures that will act as an antioxidant. So they will donate an electron whenever electron is needed. So I'll back up just a little bit. Free radicals are the cause of aging. They're the cause of lots of damage in your body. When sunlight hits you, it's high energy. It knocks off an electron. There are these oxygen-free radicals, reactive oxygen species. Oxygen loves to have 8 electrons in its outer valence. It can't stand to have 7. It has to have 8. It's like just ridiculously hungry, voracious appetite for electrons. When you have 7 there, it will take an electron from anything, from your DNA, from your lipids, from your proteins. It will degrade your skin. It will go to great lengths to grab an electron. That's what free radicals do. And that's what that is the definition of aging. These quinones, these beautiful antioxidants that come with leafy greens and fruits, blueberries, raspberries, and in like the ion products, they are these reservoirs of electrons that will donate. They're like peacemakers. So they'll go, wait, don't attack the DNA. Here you go. All you want is an electron. That's easy.
Have one of mine.
Have one of mine. Exactly. They're the peace giver. So that's the principle of an antioxidant. An oxidant will grab an electron. An antioxidant will give an electron.
Yeah.
So that's the basis of all these wonderful foods are just calming. So you have less aging and less damage, and they will intercept these free radicals.
So eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables, organic in my world,
Mhm.
will not only help prevent skin cancer, but it's going to impact your health in so many other ways as well.
Yeah.
So, and if we're looking at a 30 to 40% reduction with a diet rich in fruits and vegetables, compared to a 40 to 50% reduction in using mineral sunscreen, we're really looking at, a 50 over here, 50 over here, half and half. It's like I would rather eat the fruits and vegetables and have all the other benefits of
Yeah.
that.
And I think over the years, with more and more processed foods do result in more free radicals in our body. So not only are we getting them from the sun, we are bombarded by free radicals. So if we're not eating these foods that are rich in antioxidants, our body is just in constant battle. So
Yeah.
I think over time, we've just become less and less resilient. And that represents opportunity, just like you said.
Tell me the last time you saw a commercial that said, if you eat fruits and vegetables, you're going to reduce your risk of skin cancer.
Nobody's making money off of that. Big broccoli is going to make money off of that.
I know. It's like things have gotten so incredibly twisted in our civilization. So now we know a lot more than we did at the very beginning. What about the issue? And this is something that I've been thinking about for a while. How is sunscreen, the overuse, in my mind, my opinion, the overuse of sunscreen impacting vitamin D deficiencies? And I know, because I've been talking or listening to doctors, we have a chronic condition of vitamin D deficiency in our country.
Yeah. And you will hear the sunscreen industry scream that it is not them. This is an ironic argument. They say you're going to misuse the sunscreen. There are going to be places you miss. So because you're not good at putting it on, you will get adequate vitamin D production. So you don't need to worry about that, because we know you're going to misuse it. You're not going to put enough on, which is just so ridiculous. And the second part of their argument is that you can get it from supplement. We have vitamin D enriched cereals, right? But they can't argue. There's no argument that sunscreen does stop the absorption of UVB, which is what makes vitamin D. So there is no argument. I think the combination between sunscreen, and we spend much more time inside, and we just really need to get outside. So I think between those two things, there is no argument. That's why we're not making vitamin D. And you're right, we're vitamin D deficient. There was a lot, like during COVID, of discussions of how vitamin D deficient people were more impacted than those that weren't. Yeah.
And then that's one thing I really noticed is like something like 95% of the hospitalizations, the patients were vitamin D deficient. Of course, I didn't see anybody saying take vitamin D.
Yeah. Our company was, everybody here was like pounding them.
Okay, let me rephrase that. From the powers that be, I did not hear.
Right. Agreed.
Which is why I like Seraphic so much. But here's another point I want to make, just because this kind of stuff annoys me so much. I see a pervasive proclivity to blame the consumer across all levels. Not that, gee, we've really been formulating toxic products for decades now, and sorry about that, are bad. No, it's always the consumer is at fault, which makes me crazy, because we are relying on these people to, first of all, organizations to regulate an industry. And also, where is the responsibility to the companies who make these products? Do they have to have, mommy or daddy overseeing them? Why can't they do the right thing from the beginning? That's what annoys me about the issues.
Yeah. It's there is this arrogance that the general public is just not smart enough. We need to introduce some system. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. And so they reduce it down to something that dilutes and does not protect people. And it does put the burden on the individual. It always comes down to the reason we have skin cancer rates increasing is people are not using the sunscreen. They're not putting it on thick enough. If you can't see it, it's not thick enough. It's just ignoring the data. I'm not saying if you're going to go out for a long stretch in the sun, forget the sunscreen. I am saying use mineral sunscreen, like do not use it, forget the chemical sunscreens. There's no place for them. We have an alternative that works if you're going to be out there in the bright sunshine. I also think we need to get sun without sunscreen. We need time. We need to expose our skin, and particularly in the morning, best time to get out there and get the sun. So, but I agree with you. The blame is put on the consumer, and it's not right.
You know, and we've given a lot of information that is disturbing, I'm sure, for a lot of people. And it's disturbing to me, and I kind of knew it a little bit. I'm going to share right now with how I'm managing the sun. Perhaps you would like to share as well. I don't think that we're in a position to say, do this or do that, but I can certainly share what I'm doing based on what I know. What I'm doing is that I do try to get 20 minutes outside in the morning before noon, exposing as much of my body as possible, recognizing I have neighbors that may not want to see that much of my body. And I find that when I don't do it, I notice my mood sinking a little bit. You know, I notice that my energy goes down, my mood sinks a little bit. I just don't feel as right. When I'm sitting in the sun and that 20 minutes in the morning, I feel gloriously happy. And I know that that is a hormone response because I can feel it coursing through my body. The next thing is that I don't use sunscreen anymore at all. I just don't trust the industry. If I'm going to be out for an extended period, I protect myself with clothing. I'll wear something that will block the sun over the areas. And I pretty much try not to bake myself. In other words, if I'm going to go out hiking for an extended period, I'll arrange it so I'm either hiking under trees in the shade, or I have clothing on, a hat or a long sleeve shirt that's going to protect me. So that's what I'm doing. Cindy, do you feel comfortable sharing what you're doing? Not that you're telling people how to do it, but just how you've learned to manage it in your own life.
Yeah, I think it's actually very similar, very similar. I think 20 to 30 minutes of direct sun on your skin in the morning is great. I think it sets your circadian rhythm. Make sure you get ample vitamin D and nitric oxide. I think bolstering your natural SPF, you can start to think of it that way, which is exactly what you're saying about your diet. There's just growing research that points to the benefits of a year-round healthy diet that is good for your health overall and reduces your risk for sunburn, sun damage, skin cancer. I would say there are some interesting developments in these edible sunscreens. I don't know where they're leading, but I don't think you need to go there if you eat the lush plants and, but interesting direction. I also use ion skin spray on my face in exposed areas before I go out. That largely comes from, I guess we talked a little bit about, so maybe I can go there, the free radicals. We actually have shown that you take keratinocytes or skin cells, you hit them with UV, you can actually measure the amount of free radicals on those keratinocytes in the laboratory. When you have ion skin present, the free radicals go back down to baseline. So it literally shows that it's quenching them, which gives me that added confidence that I'm not inhibiting my ability to make vitamin D, and I am quenching free radicals. So that's where that comes from. And I, like you, Kimberly, if I'm going out for long stretches, I just wear loose fitting clothes, hats. I seek the shade. Each week I try to do a nice 2-hour kind of run, and I get out into some sunny areas. If I'm going to be
who runs for 2 hours, this woman,
somebody's chasing me. But so there I will, if it's going to be in a sun, now if I'm in the shade, but if it's going to be in a sunny area, then I'll take some mineral-based sunscreen, put on my neck, my arms, but I'm not going through very much, truly.
Oh gosh, this has been so interesting. And I am always so grateful to talk with you because of the depth of your research and your understanding. It's just so nice to hear the facts and the truth and have it just laid out very, very simply. So what I want to do now is I want to talk about a little teaser, because I'm hoping you're going to come back with me and talk to us about parabens and phthalates.
I'd be happy to go there. And
can you give us just a little teaser now
Sure.
about
Sure.
why we need to be looking at these ingredients in our products? And I know it's going to upend everything, at least in my world, because I know a lot of the products that I'm using right now contain those ingredients.
Yeah. So parabens are synthetic chemicals used as preservatives. They're in makeups, moisturizers, hair care products, shaving creams. They're actually in ingestible products as well, like pharmaceuticals. Any product that contains water and an organic material have the possibility to grow microbes. So they want to extend shelf life, which makes sense. These parabens in the products, though, are absorbed through the skin. In a 2005, 2006 study, they did it on 2,600 participants. 100% of them had parabens in their urine, significantly more in women than men, because we're using more products. And they are clearly xenoestrogens, meaning they are hormone disruptors. In 1984, the industry-led Cosmetic Ingredient Review Board, in partnership with the FDA, determined that they were safe. Didn't relook at them until 2006 because of this study that said they're in all of our urine, they're in all of our body. And they said there was no need to change that conclusion. And they continue to allow. I think it's very controversial. You'll definitely hear more about it. The phthalates are like plasticizers. They've been used in food packaging to make the plastics like a little more durable. They're also added to, hairspray, nail polish, shampoo, soaps, deodorants, hair gels, all of these different products to lubricate and to carry fragrances. So anything that has a fragrance, not a natural product. So there's lots of lovely things you can get from your farmer's market where they just made a soap with I don't want to say anything with a fragrance. Any of these shelf stable products with a fragrance probably have phthalates in them. And they've been shown, again, to be these endocrine disruptors. They've shown to have reproductive harm, infertility, miscarriages, birth defects, uterine fibroids, diabetes, insulin resistance, all these things tied to phthalates. In 2016, a petition from environmental groups and some consumer groups went to the FDA, and they said, we want you to revoke. We don't want these in products. Didn't hear anything back from them. They got no action. So in 2021, so that's 5 years later, they sued the FDA to get a decision or to get an action, and the FDA formally denied the petition in a letter. And then they said, yes, the safety assessment is out of date. We agree. We're opening a 60-day comment period, requesting new information from the public about the safety of phthalates. And I'm like, what? So the public is going to we're going to do some experiments in our basement? Like what? I don't understand that. Why that they're saying, yeah, you're right. There's not enough safety data. So we're going to put it out there for the public to come up with safety data. Yet we're not taking anything off the market in the meantime.
Isn't safety data their job?
It's interesting for cosmetics. It is up to the company selling the product to do the safety data and to say, we've done enough. They can launch the product without submitting any safety data. And then if there are complaints, the FDA can go to them and say, hey, you said you had safety data. Can we look at it? It's an enforcement kind of system. So it's really, puts it on the company to decide what safety data is needed. So things get out on the market long before anybody asks them for any kind of safety data.
Right.
It's a buyer beware
kind
of situation.
Yeah, and that's pretty eye-opening. I think that for me, especially, I thought that these agencies were doing their jobs, and they're clearly not. To me, there is no way that someone could say this agency is actually protecting the consumer.
Yeah, they're not resourced. They're not resourced to be able to do that. They were set up in a certain way, and they're following the letter of the law. And I'm sure you're in this community of people that are endorsing various beautiful sunscreens. Let's use that as an example, right? It's a luxurious feel, all of that. as soon as if the FDA were to come out and say, these 12 organic sunscreens don't have enough data, we're going to take them off the market until we get enough data, consumers would be screaming bloody murder. Anybody selling this, not the industry, but people using them would be saying the FDA is being too conservative. So I think they're in a really tough position, right? They're, because there's those of us that say, you know what, you should have a backbone and you should protect the consumer. And there's this whole other group that's saying, don't get in our way. You shouldn't get in our way, right? So they're in a tough position.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
What's the solution? Is the solution that we all mature to a place where we do no harm without being policed?
I would love to see us get to the point where we acknowledge that nature's pretty good at what she does. And there's some alternatives that we don't need. We don't need the plethora of concoctions that are out there. We really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, they were dealing with the sun long time ago, right? The Greeks were using olive oil, has an SPF of 8. And they were covering up and they weren't going out and frying themselves, right? So yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I think our FDA and EPA is not set up to protect.
Yeah.
And the higher ups in those organizations come from industry. So who are they going to protect?
Yeah.
So
and when
I
they retire, they go back to industry.
yeah. It's
So
a revolving door.
It's a good old boys club or good old girls club.
Yeah. So so I personally am kind of opting out, right? I'm just trying to educate and say, buyer beware, look for these things and start to find alternatives that I'm not poisoning my own body. I don't know what else to do, Kimberly. If you've got ideas, I'm all ears because I'm pretty passionate about it, you know, how to wake people up.
Yeah. You know, Cindy, from my little corner of the world, I'm trying to take one step at a time in the direction of real health. And I'm doing this by finding companies that are created by people who are passionate about health. You can't fake that passion. People that are doing it because they're so interested in how this works and how it really benefits the human body, and following those kind of companies one little step at a time. And that's why I love Seraphic so much. You know, Dr. Zach Bush, I wish he'd run for president. Our soil would be so much better, you know, in 10 years' time if he was at the helm. So companies that really have a passion for health and not so much a passion for profits, that's really what I'm doing. And I think that if each of us just starts being a little bit more aware of how things have kind of gone so horribly in the wrong direction, and that we really are making ourselves sick. We're making ourselves sick with our industry, and we're making ourselves sick with our choices. And if we can just start making one little choice at a time in the direction of health, oh, it could just make such an impact. So I appreciate you so much for sharing what you know. I hope you'll come back and talk to us more about the toxic ingredients and all the things we're slathering on our body. And now I'm going to have to go through it and sort out all my goodies.
I don't always want to be the bearer of bad news, but I think there are things that we can do. And that's the positive message, right? Is that there are choices out there. There are cleaner choices. There are just anything that you're doing for your health is going to help you stay out of that whole pharmaceutical world. So that's kind of where I start, like support the basic health.
Yeah. Well, you're certainly a testament to that.
Oh, thank you. It was great spending time with you, Kimberly.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today. I always enjoy it. You're just one of my absolute favorites, and I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you found this video fun, useful, and helpful. Cindy is such a wealth of information, and she's one of my favorites. We'll have her back. I'll sweet talk her into it. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.